So over the last, coming up 10 years now that I've owned four-wheel drives, there's always been one vehicle that I've always wanted to own. I've never ever been able to explain to anyone why or what it is that I like about them, other than I think they look pretty cool. They're not a vehicle that I guess most people go for. They're known to be a little bit unreliable, a little bit old, but the opportunity presented itself recently, and sometimes you just got to take chances and buy things that you really want. Introducing my new 1998 Land Rover Discovery 1 300 TDI. I know there's going to be about 3 questions. One of them going to be, what are you doing, why, and where's the Fortuner? So let's jump into it, and I'll explain why I've bought this thing. It is a 1998 Land Rover Discovery 1 with the 2.5 litre 300 TDI motor, which is actually quite good, and a 4-speed automatic gearbox, which is less good, I'll be honest. Probably should have got a manual, but that's all good. Yes, it's basically almost the last year of the Discovery 1s, and I mean, like, being first Land Rover, I wasn't particularly attached to getting any exact version. I just wanted to find one that was blue or green. This one's blue. I wanted the auto, see whether that was a good idea or not. No sunroofs, as they just cause endless rust, and on the rust thing, as minimal rust as possible. So I've been over this thing with fine-tooth comb, and there's a little bit. It's an old Discovery. They rust, unfortunately. That is just part of the game. But this one's got very little. I looked at 3 other ones, I think it was, 2 other ones, and man, they were gone. Like, there was one I looked at that had rusted off the pillars, and it was very cheap, but yeah. So, I don't know, I'm pretty stoked that I've had it 2 weeks now. I drove it to Wanganui, picked it up, drove all the way home. It almost made it without any problems. Decided about 15 minutes out of home that it didn't want to power. Since fixed that, it was just a bad fuel filter. I've been sitting around for a few months, so a few little issues. And I've just gone there and tidied up a few bits and pieces. So it's getting there. It's driving well, and yeah. So I know that, like, obviously I've got the Fortuner still. That's not going anywhere. I'm keeping that car, long term. I put a lot of work into it, and I love it, absolutely love it. But I've wanted something for a long time that's just a bit more rough and tumble, I guess, and something that I can kind of tinker away with a little bit more. Oh, Discovery is kind of, I mean, an old car that needs a lot of work is one of those exactly. To drive, it's gutless, as you'd expect. It's a 2.5 litre diesel in a, what is this, 2-ton vehicle. It makes about 120 horsepower, so it's not the fastest thing in the world. It goes a lot better with some fresh filters and all the sort of leaks and stuff fixed that I've done. It's real comfy, like way more comfy than the Fortuner, which surprises me, kind of. They are known to be a bit rough, but this thing is so much nicer to drive around than, aside from the kind of the old carness of it. I set out to buy something with a solid axle, diesel engine, and an auto gearbox. I wanted another 80, was where I started with this whole kind of process, but honestly, the money that you spend, I could buy about 4 of these for the price of 180. So I know that a bunch of people are gonna go, yeah, these are cheap for a reason, and yes, they are. Like, they are cool cars. I really like them, I always have, but compared to an 80, they're probably not as good, let's be honest. But value for money wise, like, you can't even get a surf for this sort of money anymore. And I was like, I can get solid axles, a diesel engine, relatively small car, which I'm a big fan of. The 80s off-road are quite big, and a real short wheelbase, which should make it awesome off-road. So I don't know, it kind of ticked all of my boxes. I was, looking for something really tidy, but I didn't want to spend the money, so here we are with this lovely specimen with its fading bonnet and roof. Yeah, so I don't know, Discovery 1, basically, I wanted it for one major reason. This is going to sound silly, but this gap between the rear wheel and here is really short on a Discovery 1. The boot is tiny, absolutely tiny. It's like 500mm deep or something, but compared to the Discovery 2, which I think just looks a little bit awkward as it's a bit longer, I think the proportions of this are really nicely done. So weirdly, one of the things I really like about this car, these door handles. I don't know, something about them, they just kind of pull out like, I guess, the original Range Rovers, if I remember correctly. So we've got beige, I guess you'd call it. Very beige interior. It's very well used, I'm gonna put it that way. It reckons it's done 330,000 Ks. Who knows how many it's really done. You know, being New Zealand, people mess with the Ks. Yeah, the rest of it's pretty tidy, just the interior is a bit rough, so maybe it's legit. If anybody has a spare driver's seat that they want to sell me, I would be super keen. This one's got some springs in places you don't want springs. But yeah, inside it's, you know, it's kind of the beige and everything's a bit rattly and old as you would expect from an old car. But man, it's comfy. Like, it rides, even with its worn out suspension, it rides really, really well. And I gotta be honest, even better than the Fortuner. Like, the ride in this is actually quite good. I'm surprised for an ancient piece of amazing British engineering. Yeah. So, you know, inside it's that's an old car. You know, it's about 12 years old and everything's a bit rattly and a bit loose. If anyone has got a new one of these as well, kind of keen. It's a bit all over the show, and it needs a really good clean. Like, it is disgusting in here, and I know that's a four-wheel drive, but I mean, you touch everything and you end up black and gross. So yeah, that's kind of the front. Like, it's, I don't know, it's fully functional. There's nothing fancy about it at all, but that's fine. And like the back, if we jump in here, it's tiny, absolutely tiny. So this in here is the 300 TDI motor. What is there to say about it? It's a direct injected diesel, 4-cylinder, 2.5 litre, makes about 120 horsepower in this configuration with the auto gearbox. It's a very, very, very simple motor. So basically when I bought it, I discovered the exhaust manifold was missing a bunch of studs, which is awesome. So I've replaced those, and it took me 15 minutes to basically get half that side of the motor stripped out. Like, I thought a 1KZ was easy to work on. This is even easier. And apparently, hopefully I never have to do this, but apparently you can do an entire head without removing the cam belt. It's literally drop coolant, unbolt head, new head on, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's amazing. Again, hopefully I never have to do it, being not a Toyota. I don't really know what else to say about it. It's very simple. Like, you know, 4-cylinder, 2.5 litre. It's got some fancy features. It's fully intercooled, which is kind of nice. Like, out of the factory intercooler, out of the factory massive transmission cooler, decent sized radiator. All these things that I added onto the old Prado, or at least the transmission cooler for that. This has just got it. You know, it's still an old school motor, there's not much to it. It's got an ECU, which I didn't know when I bought it. I assumed it was all mechanical, so it's kind of on par with an old 2LTE or a 1KZ TE. The only thing it has got is it had, being a Japanese import one, it has water-cooled EGR. So the EGR is blocked, which is good, but they've left this amazingly interesting water pipe here. So that's all gonna come out, and I'm basically gonna run this pipe up to the heater, as it's meant to out of the factory when you don't have EGR. So that'll be nice. Should we give it a listen? Should we give it a start? See what the old thing sounds like. It's not inspiring, I'll put it that way. One thing that I never thought I'd miss after owning a Prado is this. Ooh, a swing out tailgate. But after the stupid boot on the Fortuner with the electric stuff, this is amazing. You just pull up the handle and open it. It just works. Old school technology sometimes. Yeah, but as I said, like, this is not very deep, like, yay deep, 500mm maybe. I was originally thinking I could maybe sleep in here, but there's really not enough room. So, not sure what the plan is. I don't know if I'm going to take this as a 5-seater or make it a 2. Like, realistically, a little dude's not going to come in this with me. Like, it's old, unsafe car. Really want to use it as a family rig. It is just a toy for basically taking places I don't want to take the Fortuner. So yeah, I know this has been a slightly short, random video. I mostly just want to introduce this car. So I don't fully know what I'm going to do with it yet. So it might be a little while before you guys see it on the channel. How much do you want to see though? Like, once I've decided what I'm going to do you want to see basically a budget build series? Like, these things are cheap to buy. I don't recommend you buy one unless you're really into them, but compared to the Fortuner where I kind of went all out and did the best that I could, maybe we do something real cheap and like see how it goes. I don't know, like, what do you guys want to see? Like, I want to kind of customize this bumper, I want to redo the headliner, I want to build it a rear bumper because I really don't like the factory one. It needs some new suspension, some new wheels, some new tires. I don't know, what do you guys want to see? Like, I'm keen to you know, kind of turn this into something interesting. It will be a long project. Like, this is, you know, just kind of going to be tinkering away when I get some time. It's not going to be like the Fortuner was and just basically smash it all out in a couple of months, as there's not much point. Let's be honest. Like, the Fortuner is still going to be the one that I take away on the big trips. This one's probably going to stay a bit closer to home, and I don't know. So yeah, what do you reckon? Like, what do you want to see? I'm pretty stoked with this thing. Like, yeah, it's rough. It's a bit, you know, a bit grotty and old, but hopefully a bit of a clean and a bit of a tidy up and respray the bonnet, maybe the roof if I can be bothered. And it turns into like a relatively decent little four-wheel drive that I can use when I don't want to use the Fortuner, if that makes sense. Like, I love the Fortuner, it's real good, but there's just that occasional place where I just don't want to take it, and that's where having an old vehicle is kind of nice. So yeah, let me know. Keen to hear your thoughts, and I don't know, would you buy an old Discovery? Probably not. It's probably a great idea. We'll see whether or not this works out in my favor, or whether it's a really bad choice of vehicle. Catch you later.